Welcome back to the Business Enhancement Series, presented by Efficiency United and Semco Energy Gas Company. Now we're going to talk about marketing and selling with your new resources. How can we improve? There are so many sales processes out there, and all of them have value. It seems like there's a new sales school of thought developed every day. Some sales techniques target specific markets, just like Mark Jewell's book. We recommend regularly refreshing your sales training as techniques are always evolving. All of them have something positive to add to the discussion. So the first thing is you have to know your process. If you don't think you have a sales process, well, you do. It just might not be a very good one. Think about all the steps in your sales process. It's going to differ from company to company, but it's always going to include the first contact with your customer, the customer needs evaluation, some sort of a proposal. Of course, you've got to close them. You've got to deliver what you sold them, and then there's going to be some sort of evaluation. Focus on what works for you. So, first contact and ongoing contact. Well, all sales are somewhat relational. You've got to have some sort of a rapport or mutual respect with the customer. People prefer to do business with friends, so get to know them, bond with them. Think about some questions that you could ask to establish rapport and get to know the customer. Ask them about their hobbies, interests, families, and also recognize if they're uncomfortable talking about these things. That's part of building rapport, is building that trust. Next on the list, your needs assessment, getting to the heart of the matter. So this is where you're going to want to flip the script, make them tell you what they want. If I were you, I would do this. Get them to want to do it because it's for them. You've got to distill. That's to ask why, so you can get to root causes. For example, what are the primary driving factors for calling a contractor? Are there any particular issues you're having with your energy-consuming equipment? You've got to actively listen. It's to be quiet. Listen intently. This isn't about you talking. It's about listening. Let the customer explain how you can best serve them. Playing dumb is to also ask why. Ask them questions that might be obvious to you, and you don't really need to ask them, but it allows them to ask for help. It allows them to get to the point they realize you can be the actual service provider that will help ease that particular pain. And then play what if. It means start questions that way to get your customer to think out of the box. What if we made this change and it represented this savings? What if you didn't have to worry about this problem anymore? Then you get to the proposal stage, and hopefully the proposal reflects all the needs that you uncovered in the last step. Some things about the proposal. It should be typed. It should explain everything right off the bat. This is just the cover. It's a proposal for energy efficient upgrades for my best customer in this town from me. This is what the customer now expects when they're doing business, especially on the commercial side. And use a sense of urgency as a teaser for opportunity costs appearing later in the presentation, and that rebates not be available if they wait, and really provide that sense that they need to act now. Then you've got to close the deal. You've matched up the customer need, the budget, the capabilities that you have, the implementation cost and feasibility. Once their needs are established and the budget has been defined, well, at least a range for a budget, you can outline the cost and benefits of the proposed solution. By this time, the project has been evaluated as feasible. When all these things are taken into consideration, the sweet spot becomes evident, and it's where the three circles overlap, creating a win-win. With a win-win, the customer is going to purchase the proposed solution. If they see they're losing in any way, the deal won't close. If they choose not to purchase, they don't trust you, or some need has not been met, which means you didn't identify the problem properly. That means you got to go back to the assessment stage. Then the fulfillment. Remember, Larry Winget said, success comes from what you do, not what you say you do. So you did everything right to sell the deal, but did you do what you said you were going to do? One example is simply showing up when you say you're going to be there on time, right? More complex example is the measurement and verification of an energy efficiency project where they actually see results and notice the changes from implementing the project right there on the utility bill. If you say you'll save them money and everything else is done perfect, but when that bill comes, you didn't save them money, then you didn't do your job, at least in their eyes. You lose credibility if you don't perform as promised. It's said a lot, but you should always under-promise and over-deliver. And then all the things you do post-sale. You got to invest time after the sale. You've got to evaluate the customer's perceptions. You've got to handle objections. Maybe you did mess up. Maybe they expected something that wasn't promised. Maybe it's really simple. And then you've got to prepare for additional or future opportunities. How can we do business again? So just like a lot of pre-sale, you might get the same objections. No thanks, I'm happy with what I have. No, I'm not interested, I'm too busy, send me some literature, when you're trying to drum up future business. The trick is to anticipate their objections and handle it. Okay, so they're happy with what they have. So you call them and you start with your pitch. This is John from the Green Team. I don't know if you're familiar with us, but, and then they say, let me stop you right there. We're already doing energy saving things. You're expecting it, so you feel great and you already know what you're going to say. You know something? That's great. You're already taking steps towards efficiency. A lot of other clients, like Coca-Cola, have said the same thing before they've had a chance to see how much GTC could complement what they're already doing. You know something? You should meet with our president. What if you get the objection, we're not really working with other outside contractors. We already hired somebody. Oh, that's interesting. I'm just curious, who'd you sign up with? Well, we signed up with XYZ company. You know what? That's great, because what we do actually complements what a bunch of other contractors are actually doing. We customize our services around what's already in place so that our clients optimize their efficiencies. And then you go into appointment setting. So you still got sales challenges, even if it's follow-up business. In general, the biggest challenges we face as salespeople, getting to the true decision maker and closing the deal. The key to successfully selling is your ability to reach that decision maker. And then success in selling means understanding that selling is not really needs-based. Successful selling means helping people do what they do better. Nothing can happen unless we get the first appointment. To become successful, you need a solid base of prospects through cold calling. Your number one competitor is status quo. You can't stop moving. You can't wait for business to come to you. You're going to get a third of your appointments no matter what you do. A third you're not going to get no matter what you do. The last third is up for grabs, and you can have them or your competition can have them. If you set enough appointments, you're going to get enough sales if your process is refined. So the decision makers. First, find out who's actually going to make the final decision. Is it the person you've been talking to? Is it a higher level staff person or manager? Is it a committee? Will there be consultants involved? A lot of times people don't want to admit that they don't have the power to make the final decision. So don't ask them that way. Ask them, what's the process for making final decisions? If they say it's them, well, great. Now, if you don't know who the decision maker is, how might you get to that person? And if the person you're talking to isn't the decision maker, how can you get that person involved? Well, if the client's a homeowner, ask them if there's a spouse or other decision maker in the home. You don't have to offend them by saying you're unable to make a decision by yourself. You say, I'm just curious about how your household typically makes purchasing decisions or choosing a service provider. I'm always interested in how I can best assist my customers in making the most educated decisions. If it's a small business owner, it always makes sense to understand the chain of command with regard to sourcing decisions. It's okay to ask them what their process is for making decisions, and specifically who the major stakeholders are. And just be aware, even if your contact isn't the final person to say yes, they could highly influence the decision maker to say no. What about in a residential situation where it might be the homeowner or it might be a non-resident family member or friend? It makes sense to ask the customer if they're considerations outside of the immediate family that may impact their decision. Understanding where the funds to pay for the improvements are coming from may also be an indication of other stakeholders, whether their parents might be lending them the money. Other outside influences could include things like, you're just trying to keep up with the Joneses. Your neighbors did it, so now you are. So who are these decision makers? What are their needs, their goals, their objectives? What are their pain points? What about their decision criteria? What will exceed their expectations? We'll go into a lot of these individual strategies in upcoming courses. But being prepared for that initial meeting by having a checklist of questions is one way to get to know your customers. But having a list of questions that will provide you the answers you need can be very valuable. Customers shouldn't be treated like a sale. They should be treated like friends, like customers. They should always be made to feel that your goal is to exceed their expectations. So in order to do that, you need to know what their expectations are, and that goes back again to under-promising, over-delivering. And then make sure they know what to expect, not just in the price, but in the timing, how long things are going to take to deliver the project. That's a great way to win friends and influence people, especially if that timeline matches up with the one they have in their head. When it comes to closing the deal and the sale, there are so many different strategies, but a lot of really consistent strategies. Grant Cardone, a sales expert and author, came up with this list of things you need to do, all or definitely in part, in order to make that sale. 1, remain seated. Never stand up. Never put yourself in a position where you're standing and then can't leave. Always present your proposal in writing. You don't know what they're going to remember. You don't know what they're going to hear. You need to have a written explanation to what you're doing. You need to communicate clearly. And if they don't understand, look for different ways to explain what they don't understand. Maintain eye contact. They want to know you're talking to them, that you're not nervous. Always carry a pen. We've all been there. The client wants to sign the deal, and we're searching in their junk drawers for a pen. And that leads into using humor. If you're good at it, if it's appropriate, be light. Make a joke. Self-deprecating humor can be effective as well. Even after they've agreed, make sure they want to do it. Ask them one more time. If they say they don't, ask them one more time. And stay with that person. If you made it to a certain point in the sales process and they don't buy right away, that doesn't mean there's no future business. Stay with them, answer their questions, and look for opportunities to continue or restart the sales process. Stay confident. If they know you're nervous, if they don't think you believe in what you're selling, they're not buying. Be positive. No one wants to work with someone who's overly negative. If you represent a huge cost, you need to be a huge cost that they don't mind paying because they're working with a great team. And that leads to always smiling. You're solving their problems. If you don't act happy, you really can't expect them to act happy. And one that's not on this list, don't talk your way out of a sale. Once you've said what you're going to say, let the customer absorb. Some people say the first one to talk loses. And very often that's true. If the customer talks first, well, we won't say they lost, but you have a great chance of making that sale. Thank you for participating in the Business Enhancement Series, presented by Efficiency United, Semco Energy Gas Company.